One crucial means of formative assessment is asking questions. Research has shown that asking effective questions can increase achievement by up to 27 percentile points over no or ineffective questions. I have another set of videos on effective questions, so I would encourage you to see those for more information. Now, as we go through here, we're discussing questions. Now, I'm not just talking about what we grammatically call questions which end in a question mark. Educationally, if a teacher says, list 2 causes of World War II, that's the same as if she says, what were 2 causes of World War II? Or if she says, 2 causes of World War II were what? So don't limit your thinking here just to grammatical questions, but any prompt the teacher gives which provokes a response. In this context, though, we're generally talking about those that have a short answer used for formative assessment. So a statement such as, summarize the history of philosophy from Kant to the later Wittgenstein is not what we're talking about here, even if you phrased it as a question. So I hope that clarifies what we're looking at in this session. Now, we saw in the other videos on effective questions that there are various purposes in asking questions. We saw that you can use them as an anticipatory set, or to develop thinking skills, or to provoke in-depth thought, or for ongoing formative assessment. And we're focusing on this last element here of using questions for formative assessment. Now, as we go through here, the importance of questions is seen in this quotation from an author who says, a student's answer reflects everything he or she knows and does not know at that particular moment. In other words, an incorrect answer is completely logical to the learner, even if it seems irrational to the teacher. The challenge is to analyze the incorrect answer, to hypothesize what the student understands and does not understand, because then the teacher can determine what needs to occur next. Now, in a previous lesson on formative assessment, I said that effective formative assessment is that which finds out information about all students, not just one or a few. But our typical pattern of questioning usually involves only one student at a time. This can be called the initiate, respond, evaluate pattern. In this, you have a teacher and you have a student. And the teacher initiates things by asking the student a question, and the student responds to the teacher. The teacher then evaluates that answer. If it's right, he goes on. If not, he corrects it, asks a follow-up question, or asks another student. But you basically have a one-to-one interchange. Now, if the teacher asks a lot of questions, he might involve the rest of the class at some point, but it's still basically a series of one-to-one interactions, and the teacher only finds out what that one student knows. Let's say you have 25 students and 25 bits of instruction in the lesson. So the teacher asks student 1 question 1. So the teacher knows student 1's understanding of that one bit of information. So then he asks student 2 question 2. And he knows student 2's understanding of information bit 2. But he doesn't know about student 2 and information bit 1, or vice versa. What you want to do is find ways to get feedback on large groups of students, or all of them at a time. So what you're looking for is to develop a culture of true discussion in your class. So you have a group of students in your class, and you ask a question. And instead of the student answering you and expecting you to evaluate it, that student answers and another student evaluates, maybe asking a follow-up question, which another student responds to. You end up finding about many students quickly which ones understand the issue, which ones don't. Now, this type of thing really works only for higher order questions which don't have a simple answer. I mean, you're not going to have a discussion about what's 4 plus 4. But you might have this type of thing when you say, why did Pip want Estella's approval? Now, there still might be a problem with this one that I mentioned earlier in the series on effective questions. You might have some students who get involved and others who don't get involved and are quiet. And when they are quiet, you don't know why. They might be shy. They might need a little extra time to think of an answer. They might be lazy. They might not know the answer. Unless you require all students to answer at least one question in the discussion, you won't know. And again, it might be that the one question the student answers is the only one he knows. You need to find ways to check understanding for all students. And so one way that has come about with this is student response systems. Now, some of these are low-tech and have been around a long time. Marker boards, in the old days they had chalk slates. Yes-no signs, ABCD signs that each student has. And with these, you ask something and all students indicate their answer by holding up their response. You can quickly get a read on the class. The yes-no signs and the ABCD signs have an advantage in that you can scan the room almost instantly and check for understanding, while with marker boards, you have to take at least a short amount of time to decipher and read each student's answer. But that's not a major problem. So these are some ways that you can get feedback from all the students quickly. But there are also software solutions to this. A few years ago, you had systems where you could buy dedicated student response systems, where every student has a clicker or a response unit that communicates with your control unit. So you ask a question, students respond on their clicker, you get an instant readout of who understands and who doesn't. Now, the same thing is done through a BYOD system. There are free websites that enable you to ask a question and have the students respond on their devices, and you get instant feedback. If you want, you can display results without names for the class so that they can all see how they are progressing. So, two of these software solutions are Socrative, which some of you are already using, and GetIt from letsgetit.com. This is something that I just now have found out about, but either of these solutions enable you to ask questions on the fly. Like you don't even have to preload things. You can just say, okay, ask a question, and it's a multiple choice, and kids just answer with A, B, C, D, or E, and you tell them what the choices are, and then you can tell what their answers are. But with these, you can get instant results. You can also set up pre-made questions, even quizzes. You can quickly see what problems you have to address with whom, because you see what every student answers. Now, the software solutions have an advantage over the no-tech solutions, because if you have yes or no cards, for example, sometimes students will look around the room to see what other kids are picking up, so then they pick up the same thing. With the software solutions, they don't have that opportunity. They can't see what others are answering. Now, another important bit of information in your formative assessments is to know how confident your students are in their knowledge when they answer. You see, they might give you the right answer, but they may just be guessing, and they may know that they're guessing and they're not real sure. Or they might be very confident in their answer, but they're wrong. This is important information for you to know, because you might just need to encourage some students. Yeah, you got it right, and why were you unsure about it, or something like that. And with others, you need to figure out what misconceptions they have that led them to the wrong answer, but to be confident about it. One way you can check confidence level is through hand signals. You could have your students hold up more or fewer fingers to show how confident they are. Like if they're really confident, they hold up 5 fingers. If they're really not sure, they might hold up none. But you get an idea of how confident they are in their answer. Or they can hold thumbs up if they got it, thumbs down if they really don't know what you're doing, and thumbs sideways, kind of wiggling if it's like, well, I'm not sure about this. You can also do this, by the way, when you're explaining some complex process. Let's say that you're working through a problem in math on how to add unlike fractions. And so you work it out step by step, but at each step you have the students show their confidence level. Do you understand this, or do you see how I got this? That way you can know specifically what step is a problem for students instead of just seeing that they got the wrong answer and you don't know where they went wrong with it. Now, one of the software solutions that I gave you, Get It, also has this built into it. When students answer a question, they also indicate their confidence level. And so your screen shows all the students, shows their answers, and shows their confidence level at a glance. So notice the teacher screen over here on the right. It shows you through color coding which students got the right answer. You have the green answers, or which ones missed it, the red ones. And it also shows you which answers they gave so that you can tell, what errors they made. But then on the left side of that screen, you see their confidence. You see that it ranges from red, which would be I have no idea what's going on, to green, I'm really confident, or somewhere in between. So you see at a glance how confident the students are, and you're getting feedback from all your students at once. So this is something I would encourage you to check out, is the Get It program. Now, you can also use index cards as an exit ticket. An exit ticket is something you ask a question at the end of the lesson, a question that can be answered relatively quickly, but it gets at one of the main points of the lesson. And so students write their name and the answer on that card and give it to you at the end of the lesson or as they leave class. You can glance over those cards quickly and check on their understanding. You can address their problems the next day. Your exit ticket questions can be obvious ones from the lesson, such as what do we call an angle less than 90 degrees? Who was the first president of the United States? Things like this. But there are also other ways you can use exit tickets for your formative assessments. Here are some of these. 1. List 3 things you've learned today. Or list 3 things your neighbor has learned today. There's value when students are talking to one another, when they explain things to one another. So this brings that in there. 60-second challenge. Give them 60 seconds, sum up the main point of the lesson. Write one new word you learned in this lesson and its meaning. The answer is, and then you ask them, what's the question? Take 1 minute to compose 2 sentences in your head to explain what we learned using keywords from the lesson, and then write those 2 sentences down. So these are just several ways that you might use an exit ticket to get formative assessment information from your students. Now, we and our students need to get away from the idea that every answer must always be correct. Now, I know that sounds heretical, so let me give an analogy. I sing in the Cherokee County Chorale. We're currently working on some very difficult music for a concert. And during rehearsals, the director has emphasized to us that he wants us to sing out, even if we might be singing the wrong notes or the wrong words. I mean, one piece we're doing is in Latin and another is in French. He said that if we don't sing out, if we're hesitant and I think, well, I don't want to sing because I'm not sure about the notes, then he won't know where the problems are. We won't know what the issues are. But if we sing out anyway, even if we sing the wrong notes, he can hear where we're right and hear what we're missing, and he can deal with the errors. And that's the view we want to have in our classrooms with formative assessment. We want to hear all of their answers, whether they're right or wrong. And this quotation explains that concept. The whole idea that students should always answer teachers' questions correctly is actually rather odd. If the students are answering every one of the teacher's questions correctly, the teacher is surely wasting the student's time. If questions are not causing students to struggle and think, they're probably not worth asking. As I say to students, mistakes are evidence that the questions I asked are tough enough to make you smarter. Of course, the best teachers have always said that making mistakes is okay, but recent research has shown that making mistakes in learning is actually better than not making mistakes. When students are taught material and tested on their recall, the students who did badly on the test and are shown their mistakes and the correct answers are the students who score best on a post-test weeks later. So I hope this is helpful as you think about using questions for formative assessment. If you have any questions for me, if there's something you don't understand or suggestions that you have, feel free to drop me an email. So thank you for watching this video.